I finally felt like Lynlee was out of the woods when she had her tracheostomy closed surgically. Look, it's funny, we can laugh about it now, but she wasn't out of the woods yet because one of the rare complications of that surgery is that the interior wound doesn't close all the way, and it can cause a tracheal leak, which the problem with a tracheal leak on the inside is if the outside's closed, there's nowhere for the air to escape. So Jackie called me one day at the hospital I was working, and she said, hey, Lynlee's neck is swollen. This was like 2 weeks after she'd had the surgery to close it. And I don't know why, but I just knew that she needed to go to the hospital. And so they did. And so I met him over there. We told him, I need you to call the ENT doctor now. And so they did, and they showed up and they were like, yeah, we've got to take her to the OR right now. This is something that can be life-threatening. And so they did. But
well, they wanted to make sure if it was air or blood.
Right.
And so they tried to get ultrasound. And as we were in the ultrasound, they said, if anything changes, if her voice changes, you need to let us know. And I was right there with her. And I remember the doctor who was about to have a baby at the time herself, the ENT, said, I'm going to scrub in. And it was so fast paced that the resident or whoever, somebody was doing the ultrasound. I was like passing Josh, and did she give you the pair of scissors or the resident? She said, if something happens,
cut the sutures.
Cut the sutures. So
Lynlee was
her voice changed.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're going to the OR.
Yeah. So at that point, we thought we were out of the woods. And then you have the anesthesia provider telling us, hey, there's a chance they can't get this trach back in. And if that happens, she won't make it. And we were like, oh, like.
So we went from being out of the woods
to now life-threatening again. And so she had the second surgery, which thank the Lord, they found the tiny little hole and they were able to repair it.
Yeah. I think for me in that time in the roller coasters, it was like I really understood and experienced what it meant to like cry out to God. And through all of the prayers and my prayer life grew immensely, obviously, when I'm praying for my only child. He was so faithful that the cries just turned into praises. You said already, on the days I was weak, you were strong, and on the days, vice versa. And God, did that for us in our marriage and as parents, and He still does to this day.
Yeah, I think as far as the roller coaster, there were definitely times where you're questioning, why have you brought us this far? And now it seems like you're taking us backwards. And I think I might have struggled with that a little more than Jackie. Yeah, there were times when I remember just laying on the floor and you don't really know how to pray. You just kind of lay and be. And, it's moments like that where, the people around you that are praying for you, I think it really gives you, the Lord gives you a strength through others and through prayer, and there's really no other way to explain it. So
Josh and I, from the time we dated, we knew that we wanted to have a big family. We hoped that, God would bless us with a big family. And after Lynlee was born, at one of my post appointments with the OB, she was very strict on not getting pregnant for 3 years, just for me medically. She was very concerned. And I guess we were close to that 3-year mark, and
we got the okay.
Yeah, we got the okay, and
yeah, I think we were talking about this the other day. In a way, it was a blessing that Lynlee was our first child.
And that
we had the time. She needed the time. She needed us 100% of the time, and we were able to give it to her. And two, we were naive enough to not realize that it wasn't a normal thing. And so, we would take Lynlee on a walk, and you have on a backpack, ventilator, with 3 feet of tubing hooked up to your kid's neck, and
An
Lynlee,
oxygen tank, a
praise-
suction machine.
Yeah,
Because
you always
if
have
they,
to have suction. You always have to have a backup battery. You always have to have oxygen, and you have to have your trach backpack to have
yeah.
all your extra supplies in
she
case an
required a
emergency
lot.
happens. Right. So, to us, that was our normal life. Like that was a daily normal life. Like if we went somewhere, it was
Like a ventilator was always beeping.
Yeah.
Because if she coughed or if she did anything funny, the ventilator would beep.
Yeah, and you had to have the monitor to hook her up just in case, so you would know what her, what her vital signs were. So I think for us, we were naive enough and young enough, in a good way, to not realize like, oh, this isn't a normal thing.
Right.
But I think other people saw us and really felt bad for us. But it was like quite the opposite, because to us it was such a blessing and pure joy that she was alive.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the main things we talked about that stood out to me in our conversation the other day about it was.
And talking about like the joy that we had. I can remember talking about all of her gear. After she had her hip surgery, she was in a full body cast with her legs out like this, and there was a hole cut out for her G-tube and then a hole for us to do her diaper. And I can remember she couldn't move her legs. Like to me, I can just think of it and squirm a little, not being able to move my legs. But the joy that child had and still has today through all of that. And we would take her to, his youngest brother was in high school at the time. I remember going to a baseball game and she was pretty heavy in this cast. Josh would hold her up because she could just sit there, and we had all her gear with us. And
so when it came to the question of do you have more kids, to us it was never a question. It was a normal thing for us, and
we were gonna give it to God,
give it to God, and
we gave Lynlee to God.
Yeah, I knew if we had another kid like Lynlee, we may not be able to have a big family, but for us it was never a question, because it was just like that's a normal thing.
So after Lynlee, our next one in the lineup is Lucy, and she is 3 years younger than Lynlee. And then we had Hunter, who is 2 years younger than Lucy, and then Marley, who is 2 years younger than Hunter, and then Walker J, the last one, who's 2 years younger than Marley. So all 2 years apart, except for Lynlee and Lucy. We waited that 3-year mark. And yeah, they were all healthy babies.
Quite the opposite of
Yes.
Lynlee's experience.
Yes, we got
in a good way.
come home, and I got to hold them and nurse them, and got to experience all the normal things of being a mom.
So, Lynlee is pure joy. I won't say all the time because she's a teenager now, but most of the time. And she's pretty much good in any situation. She's the most social kid I've ever met.
She brings the morale for our family.
She can talk to anyone. She has never met a stranger. I think a lot of that comes because of the first few years of her life, where she was around so many different adults. Never was around other kids for a couple years, really.
Right.
Never was around, didn't have sights to see. She laid in a bed and a chair back and forth, being held, and we used to read her a lot of books. She loves reading. One of the most incredible things I saw when she was a baby was she started to talk with the trach, and there was a Minnie Mouse book that we had read to her that she loved, and she memorized the entire book. It was 10 pages long, and she could say the whole thing, and it was you could barely understand what she was saying.
Keep in mind, she was in speech therapy.
Speech therapy,
and you could not understand her,
but she did not
knew
miss a word, and just you could kind of see that she wasn't never supposed to live. She was supposed to be in a vegetative state, and this girl, as a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old, has memorized a book. Obviously, her brain's okay. That was a big thing for me. And her eyesight was incredible.
Yes.
She could see the tiniest little stuff, and she, had the Avastin injection in her eye. Was supposed to wear glasses, and it's these little things that God shows. Wow, He answered every single little thing we prayed for.
I can remember when Lynlee was 6 and started kindergarten. which this is just one of those God incidences. I remember praying the summer before, being so nervous about her going to kindergarten for all kinds of different real reasons, and then also like the mom, like that's a little crazy reason. But I remember praying specifically for Lynlee's teacher to go to church with us. Don't know why. I just wanted that in our life. And her kindergarten teacher, Carrie Landon, she did go to our church, but she did not start going until about 2 weeks before that school year, she told me, when I shared that with her later. And so I just felt, man, God continued to remind me and encourage me in so many ways. But I was very worried about kindergarten. And at the time I had a journal that I'd written down of like just all my prayers for her for kindergarten. And one morning, I don't remember if I was washing my face and water fell on it, the journal was in the bathroom, or if a cup of water fell on it, but it was the ink just went away. And it was in that moment where I was like, you know what? I'm already like feeling better about it. And it was like my worries were literally just washed away. Wow. And she, went on to have that teacher, and I think she helped her like love school for sure through those elementary years.
Through her early years, she had to learn how to eat. We did a lot of speech feeding therapy.
Yeah.
She eventually, she's our best eater.
Yeah.
She eats the most.
She would tell her friend. in elementary school,
she still had her too, but
yeah.
she would eat. Yeah.
We could send her with food, and she could eat some, but that's not how she got her full nutrition. And some days she would go to school and she would tell her teacher, my mom did not feed me today. And the teacher was like, and I know your mama fed you. And so she's funny and she's spunky. She still is. That personality is carried on into her teen years.
At this point, Lynlee is 13 years old, and she is living the life of a typical 13-year-old. She's in a typical classroom in middle school. She has friends. The last, 5 years, I've been relatively normal and stable, and she got rid of all of her extra tubes and everything that she had to have to live when she was younger. Really just a blessing, and there's still things that she struggles with and probably always will, just because of the history she had. And it can be a daily struggle for her, but also for us. And but I think that one of the things we've learned through all this is that God is there. He's still in the business of performing miracles. He still answers prayer.
I can remember asking the doctors if they believed in miracles, and just being so passionate about praying at that time for Lynlee for a miracle, and learning through all this. And I know that I believe in miracles. And I want to say too, the timing of even us being approached at church by Chris to do this video, like for myself and hearing our story again, it's just kind of a encouraging reminder, like specifically for Lynlee, but to continue to pray for her healing to be complete, because like Josh said, there are other areas that we struggle with. And so continuing to pray for that. And I hope from Lynlee's story that y'all heard what the power of prayer can do, and the power of talking to God. Like He wants to listen, and He wants you to listen, and He wants you to act on the Holy Spirit when He tells you, not just hear it and hear it again, because there's blessings on those actions. Just through Lynlee's life, being surrounded by our friends and family who are believers, how they just took care of us and lifted us up in prayer with us. And then knowing that, even times knowing like I could rest and go to sleep because somebody was probably at work, or my parents' neighbor would like go into his closet and close the door and pray for Lynlee. We had I mean, my group of college girls just constantly, we're all in different places, but reaching out and just knowing that, like, they can't possibly love Lynlee as much as we do, but so many, like, of our family and our brothers and their wives now, and those girls loving her as much as they possibly could and praying for her like she was their child. And I think you said that once at High Point. I think you asked people to pray as if Lynlee was theirs. And we could feel that.
Yeah. I think if I had to say one thing, if you're watching this story and you are going through some sort of trial or a health problem or a new diagnosis or
A marriage or any
anything, addiction, anything. I think the key thing I want you to take from Lynlee's story is that, one, our God is a God of miracles, and He still performs them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the big ones; it's the little ones that you may or may not even realize at the time are miracles. A couple things I wanted to say I've learned: you never know what people are going through. Your words or actions may not seem significant, but they might make a huge impact on someone's life. It could be a lifelong, change their life forever. You don't know what that might be, but just remember there's always people that are going through things that you may not be able to see just by looking at them. So be responsive and receptive to the Lord and the Holy Spirit, and when He pushes you to act, do it. And that's, our lives have been affected in so many positive ways from people that were obedient or that wanted to just show love in some way. Through Lynlee's story, we've seen people be obedient to the Lord in so many different ways, and it just shows and proves that love works.
So I'll say, if you are a mom that's going through anything similar to this, or any trial as a mom, whatever that looks like to you.
Or a hopeful mom.
Or a hopeful mom. Yeah. Whatever that looks like, just know that God cares and He's listening, and He's not going to give up on you, even if you feel like He is. He's not. So I would just encourage you to talk to Him and to listen to Him and just sit with Him in your trials, and don't give up on Him, because He's not going to give up on you.